Thank you. May we apologize? The minister has requested that he got caught up on traffic. He was opening another meeting this morning. So he requested that we start the meeting at 9:30. So we'll start at 9:30. Ministers can go back to the holding room. Thank you very much.
We all occupy our seats. Thank you very much. I must apologize. I had a session this morning with the employers in the city. We're dealing with a number of issues relating to our policy and legislative reforms from the National Labor Employment Policy, Labor Migration Policy, the issues of employment equity. Those were the hot issues with the employers. Hence, I delayed, and I must apologize for this session for starting late. I hope honorable ministers will understand. And welcome to the second session of the BRICS Minister meeting. Very important today. I hope all of us woke up well after the dinner and were healthy, raring to go. Today we're discussing a very important subject, which is a presentation on social protection, which will be led by the ILO and ISA. Without much ado, I'm going to be requesting the presenters to take the floor. That is Mr. Caetano Marcelo, who is the Secretary General of ISA, will be followed by Ms. Laura Thompson, who is the Assistant Director General for External and Cooperation Relations. And we therefore request Mr. Caetano to take the floor.
Thank you, Minister. And I will be the first one taking the floor. Excellencies, Ministers, very nice to be able to present to you this presentation from ILO and ISA on ensuring universal access to social protection, together with the Secretary General of the International Social Security Association, Mr. Marcelo Caetano. Our presentation builds on two key sources. First, the result of this year's work of the BRICS network of labor research institutes on social protection of the working age population in BRICS member states, as reflected in country reports and a summary report. ILO and ISA have supported this important work, including through the BRICS Social Security Virtual Liaison Office. Second, the joint technical paper that the ILO and ISA have jointly developed and presented at the second Employment Working Group meeting, and which is available online. Let us highlight the key messages that emerge from this work for your consideration. Over the last 2 decades, all BRIC countries have made significant progress on the extension of coverage and enhanced adequacy, although persistent coverage gaps remain a challenge, as shown in the ILO's World Social Protection Report. The COVID pandemic and the repercussions of multiple crises have demonstrated once again the essential role of social protection systems for our economies and societies for protecting people's health, jobs, and incomes. BRIC countries have developed more than 270 measures to address coverage gaps and provide their populations with the necessary support in the face of the pandemic since 2020. Institutional capacities have become key assets and conditions for reaching social protection objectives. Yet, many of these COVID response measures were only temporary and did rarely lead to lasting improvements in social protection systems. Today, we are at crossroads. On the one hand, we recognize the transformative potential of universal social protection for decent work, inclusive growth, and sustainable economies and societies. Ensuring universal access to comprehensive and adequate social protection, both income security and access to health care, is a core of social justice. Yet, unemployment, underemployment, and informality put stronger pressures on social protection systems while constraining the capacity of governments to address these challenges. It is therefore necessary to reinforce social protection systems to, first of all, cushion the impact of life cycle risks and crises on people. Second, support productivity and maintain macroeconomic stability. And third, support the creation of quality employment. For this reason, universal social protection, together with skills development and other policies, are integral part of the Global Coalition for Social Justice, the initiative which is currently shaped and developed by the ILO in close consultations with its constituents and with the international organizations. Expanding support for rights-based universal social protection systems, including floors, is a cornerstone of social justice, and deepening partnerships at the global, regional, and country levels, including under the UN Global Accelerators on Jobs and Social Protection for Just Transitions and beyond. Now, in order to strengthen social protection systems, guaranteeing at least basic level of income security is a key function of a national social protection law. In this regard, minimum income grants and other social assistance benefits play a key role in all BRIC countries, and as highlighted by the BRICS network of labor research institutes. According to international social security standards, in particular Convention number 102 and Recommendation number 202, minimum income grants and other social assistance programs should respond to certain principles, and I will mention some of them. They should be anchored in national law, which sets out clear and transparent eligibility conditions, including on-means tests, grievance mechanisms, and rights of appeal. Benefit levels should be adequate to allow for a life in dignity, which requires that the necessary financing, usually through general taxation, is available to meet the population's needs. A regular review of benefit levels to keep up with living standards, especially in times of high inflation. Effective measures should be in place to ensure awareness, delivery, and take-up of benefits. And social dialogue is essential in defining and implementing a national social protection law, ensuring tripartite participation and consultations with other relevant stakeholders. At the same time, we know that a minimum income schemes and social assistance alone are not sufficient for ensuring income security and social protection for workers. In all BRICS countries, social insurance schemes play an essential role in ensuring income security and access to health care, as highlighted by the research. Yet, there are significant coverage gaps especially for certain categories of workers, such as temporary workers, part-time workers, self-employed workers, agricultural workers, domestic workers, or workers on digital platforms. Such coverage gaps negatively affect the functioning of labor markets, including labor market mobility, put stronger measures on tax-financed benefits, and result in inadequate social protection and decent job deficits. The International Labour Conference in 2021 has called for greater efforts to promote adequate social protection for workers in all types of employment, including self-employment. BRICS countries have made great strides to extend social security coverage to those who have not been covered before. The reports of the BRICS network of labor research institutes, as well as the ILO-ISA background paper, highlight many such examples, which are important experiences also for knowledge sharing and peer learning. These include, for example, ensuring necessary capacities to register workers, collect contributions, ensure financial stability, and deliver benefits. Yet, we all know that more needs to be done. Evidence from 3 BRICS countries, Brazil, India, and South Africa, shows uneven pension coverage rates for workers in different types of employment. Part-time workers are less likely to contribute than full-time workers. Temporary workers are less likely to contribute than workers on permanent contracts. Self-employed workers are less likely to contribute than employees. Younger and older workers are less likely to contribute than prime-age workers. In addition, women are less likely to be covered by men because of their lower labor force participation, their higher risk of finding themselves in more insecure employment, and a risk of dropping out of formal employment when having children. These are common patterns across countries, but it does not have to be this way. Policies really can make a difference. Let me give you one example. Brazil has reached significant pension coverage for self-employed workers. About 1/3 of self-employed workers are contributing to a pension scheme. Much of this success is related to policies to extend social security coverage to self-employed workers through simplified mechanisms for micro-enterprises and on-account workers to access social security and the rural pension schemes that covers also agricultural producers. This is extremely positive, although, as the minister reminded us yesterday, concerns about precarity still remain. In a similar way, the sustained efforts for other BRICS countries to extend social security, for example, to platform workers, translate into positive change in the lives of people, contribute to the reduction of vulnerabilities, to decent work and inclusive growth, just transitions toward more sustainable economies and societies, and eventually to social justice. We all know that partnerships provide invaluable opportunities to exchange and share experiences, whether in the form of peer exchanges among BRICS countries and South-South collaboration. In this context, I would like to highlight again the important work done in the BRICS network of labor research institutes and the BRICS Social Security Cooperation Framework Virtual Liaison Office, which is jointly supported by the ILO and ISA. I am now going to hand over to my colleague, Secretary General Marcelo Caetano, for the second part of our joint presentation. Marcelo, you have the floor.
gone wrong.
Okay, this one.
Okay, thank you, Laura. So, I will continue with the presentation of Laura, and I will focus more on the, I will focus more on the implementation of policies. And we have to construct good policies, but as ISA is much more related to the implementation phases of the policies, I'm focusing more on this. And then this first slide, it shows some by our experience in ISA, what are the key factors that are relevant for more effective and efficient implementation of policies. So one first factor is that in the implementation for phase, the institution that implements that policy has to have a people-centric perspective, service delivery perspective. Sometimes it's not that simple because most of the, okay, it's okay, it's working, okay. Okay, no problem. Sometimes it's not that simple because some institutions, they facing solutions that can be easier to the institution, not to the people. But we see that the more successful policy implementations goes with a perspective in which we deliver the policy, we implement the policy with a people-centric perspective. One second factor that is relevant for successful implementation of it's working. Okay. Okay. But I'm speaking anyway. Okay. Okay. The second factor is the technology. How do we use a technology in a more effective and efficient way? And this factor of technology is too much dynamic. We see that it changed over time. We are seeing from the last year on the speed of applications of artificial intelligence. So the better usage of technology, data-driven, digital service is an important factor for a successful implementation of policies. One third factor that we see that affects the successful implementation is the governance. So having a good and inclusive governance mechanism is essential to deliver better the policies. A fourth factor that appeared most recently, it exists for a long time, but we gave relevance to it, especially after COVID period, is the resilience, constructing institutional resilience for continuity of delivering benefits and services. We have seen it through COVID, but we see that COVID, okay, it has gone, but we see now many countries facing, for example, natural disasters that change the way that we have to create new things in order to adapt to these natural disasters, and how it is relevant to have institutional resilience for continuity of delivering benefits. And the one-fifth factor is to have a staff of the institution that implement the policy that is technically capable, that is motivated and feel connected with the mission of the institution. These five factors, we have taken these five factors by the experience that we are seeing by our membership for implementing good practice. So at the yellow column on the right-hand side, we are seeing examples from the big BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, in which these five factors, they were used in order to implement and deliver better policies. But there are even more recent examples coming from the BRICS countries that shows how these factors are relevant for a better implementation. So, for example, this year, by coincidence, two of the BRICS countries, South Africa won the ISA Good Practice Award for Africa with the Child Support Grant. And by our analysis, the Child Support Grant used quite well this people-centric perspective in order to implement the policy. And for the Americas, Brazil has recently won the Good Practice Award for the Americas from NISA via the Emergence Aid. And in this case, we see, for example, how technology, the usage of technology was relevant in order to have a better implementation of policy, and also the institutional resilience, because we see changes in governments, in political directions, but the institution is capable to survive and to keep it going, to keep working, regardless of political change that can happen. So these are 5 factors that they are quite relevant to have a good implementation of policy, and this comes too much from our experience, from good practice from our membership. The next slide, please. Okay. But the good delivery of policy, it does not depend only on the institution that implements that policy. We see a need for coordination if we want to have a good delivery, more effective, a more efficient delivery, implementation of policies. And when we are talking about things that goes beyond the institution that implements that policy. So we see the relevance of coordination. And when we talk about coordination, we talk about coordination related to policy. So to have policy coordination, for example, employment policies that are well coordinated with other relevant social security policies, with other relevant policies, with other relevant social policies, and also coordination in an interinstitutional level. Most of the time, some policies, they are delivered by different institutions, and one potential failure for a good delivery of that policy is that these 2-3 institutions that has to work together in order to deliver the policy, they are not quite well coordinated. So there is a need for having a well-coordinated interinstitutional coordination for a better delivery of policies. This is not that simple. Sometimes we see many instances of the public administration into silos, and even inside one institution, we see silos inside one institution. So this need for coordination is quite relevant to have a more efficient policy delivery. And of course, saying these things is much easier than do these things, but even considering these factors for good policy implementation and also a good coordination of policy, we have over time to do constant monitoring of these policies, construct by evidence to see if what we were proposing to do is exactly what we are reaching. So there this needs for constant monitoring mechanism via evidence base. So by concluding the next one, what I'm saying is that the linkage between the policy in itself and the mechanism for implementation of the policy, it is essential in order to deliver to people what we are proposing to people. So we, as Laura mentioned, we certainly need to reinforce national social security policies and strategies. We need to build a strong national social protection floors. we need to invest in extending social insurance to comprehensive coverage for workers in all types of employments to facilitate transitions from the informal to the formal economy. So it's a very noble and concrete policy objectives. But what we in ISA do is to show the ways in which our membership is doing in order to have an effective implementation of these policies. So it's essential to ensure the appropriate investment in institutional capacities. These things are key mechanisms for the effective implementation of policies, so these factors that I mentioned before, and we need for sure not just to have a good institution that implement the policy, but we have to have a good coordination among different policies and among different institutions that implement these policies. So basically this is my message to conclude the message from Laura. Policy is essential, but to have a good implementation of the policy, we have to look at the institutions that implement these policies and how can they work in order to implement these policies in a more effective and efficient way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both our sister Thompson and our brother Kaiteno. Very interesting issues. When you're talking about why? When you're talking about these two issues, when you're talking about the social protection, you're talking about dealing with poverty. And you can't reduce poverty or even intervene in poverty or mitigate that poverty if you're not focusing on this particular area. But how that has to be achieved, and I think the second presentation says building the capacity, the institutional capacity is very important so that you are able to deliver that effective and quality service. Because sometimes you can have it, but if you don't have the proper capacity, it can end up being chaos. But linked to that is the issue of good governance. And we know that most of us in our continent are still characterized by bad governance, although we have the resources. So the issue of good governance comes very, very strongly. And what we mean by good governance, it has a number of elements. The transparency in the policy formulation, the coordination of the different sectors, allowing participatory involvement as you develop those policies. But also policies are not static. Policies have to be reviewed from time to time to respond to this dynamic situation which we are facing. Society is ever changing, it's dynamic. That's my take from those presentations, but I would allow the responses first from the BRICS member countries, 7 minutes each. I will be strict with my timer. ministers will all be strict with my time. Thank you, colleagues. So as we start to respond, we will call the Federal Republic of Brazil, followed by the People's Republic of China, the Republic of India, the Russian Federation, and the Republic of South Africa. So shall we start with the Federative Republic of Brazil?
Bom dia, excelentíssimo ministro do Trabalho e Emprego da África do Sul, amigo senhor Unzese, cumprimentar e registrar mais uma vez, dia de ontem, a visita à feira do trabalho e também registrar o magnífico jantar oferecido ontem, cumprimentar a todos. Cumprimentar o senhor secretário-geral da ISA, Marcelo Caetano, e comentar pela apresentação, comentar o diretor-geral da OIT, senhor Umbo, amigo Umbo, registrar também a apresentação da Laura Thompson, excelentíssimos ministros, demais autoridades, prezados colegas do Grupo de Trabalho do BRICS e demais convidados. Em nome do governo brasileiro, agradecemos a contribuição de todos para essa conversa vital sobre a proteção social universal. O atual governo brasileiro entende a importância de sistemas previdenciários robustos. Mais de 37 milhões de brasileiros e brasileiras dependem de benefícios previdenciários. E esta é uma ferramenta crucial para o desenvolvimento social, distribuição de renda e garantia de segurança em todo o país. No Brasil, a Previdência Social é responsável pela renda de milhões de brasileiros e brasileiras e responsável também pelo orçamento de municípios inteiros. Logo, é essencial falar da sustentabilidade do sistema. Preparar trabalhadores para o mercado de trabalho atual, que está em constante evolução, sempre esteve na pauta de todos os governos do presidente Lula. Se reflete nos inúmeros programas que buscam alinhar a formação profissional com as necessidades do mercado de trabalho. Nosso governo reconhece a importância da Seguridade Social como investimento de longo prazo e entende que as pessoas devem estar no centro de todas as políticas públicas. Portanto, a sustentabilidade do sistema deve ser alcançada através da geração de mais e melhores empregos, com boa remuneração, aumentando a cobertura e a inclusão dos mais vulneráveis sem qualquer forma de exclusão. Em março deste ano, o governo do presidente Lula lançou uma nova versão do programa chamado Bolsa Família, que oferece transferência de renda para famílias de baixa renda em troca do compromisso da manutenção dos filhos na escola e em dia com os exames de saúde. O programa tem sido altamente bem-sucedido na redução da pobreza e na melhoria dos resultados de saúde e educação infantil, uma vez que garante renda básica aos mais necessitados e está integrado às políticas públicas que facilitam o acesso dos beneficiários a direitos básicos como saúde, educação e moradia. Nessa nova versão, também estão previstos valores adicionais para cada criança de 0 a 6 anos, para crianças e adolescentes de 7 a 18 anos e para gestantes. Cabe destacar que, com o retorno dessa importante política de combate à desigualdade, mais de 700 mil famílias que estavam fora do programa passaram a ser contempladas. Além do programa Bolsa Família, o Brasil tem uma série de outros programas de proteção social, incluindo cobertura universal de saúde por meio do Sistema Único de Saúde, o SUS, um sistema público de previdência e programa de apoio a idosos, pessoas com deficiência, populações rurais e seguro-desemprego, que ajuda os trabalhadores e suas famílias em caso de perda de emprego ou outros ciclos de queda econômica. Cito também o seguro-defeso, um importante programa de Seguridade Social que visa proteger os pescadores artesanais durante o período de reprodução e defesa dos recursos pesqueiros. Este benefício assegura uma renda mínima aos pescadores durante o período em que a pesca é proibida, garantindo-lhes uma fonte de subsistência enquanto contribui para a preservação das espécies aquáticas. Dessa forma, além de oferecer amparo financeiro, o seguro-defeso desempenha um papel fundamental na promoção da sustentabilidade ambiental e na inclusão social, ao proteger uma comunidade que historicamente enfrenta desafios econômicos sazonais. Da mesma forma, durante os períodos de calamidade pública por questões climáticas, o governo brasileiro concede benefícios emergenciais para suprir não apenas as necessidades básicas das pessoas afetadas, como alimentação e abrigo, mas também para contribuir na reconstrução das áreas afetadas e na recuperação econômica das comunidades e também das empresas. Registrar que ontem o presidente Lula assinou uma medida provisória para encaminhar para o Congresso Nacional, liberando R$1 bilhão para o estado do Rio Grande do Sul, recentemente afetado por calamidades. Importante ressaltar que nosso governo, sob a presidência do companheiro Lula, tem como um dos objetivos dar dignidade, proteção e qualidade de vida a milhões de trabalhadores de plataformas em nosso país. Um dos nossos primeiros passos foi a criação de um grupo de trabalho interministerial para tratar do tema e elaborar recomendações. Após um amplo processo de discussão tripartite, pretendemos encaminhar uma proposta ao Congresso Brasileiro em breve. Podemos afirmar que, no Brasil, o trabalho de plataforma terá regras mais claras após um intenso exercício de diálogo social, proporcionando o bem-estar necessário aos trabalhadores, principalmente com a previdência social, para que o trabalhador tenha cobertura em caso de adoecimento ou acidente. Nesse sentido, a proteção social e os direitos de trabalhadores são temas primordiais e inescapáveis para o governo democraticamente eleito do presidente Lula. Isto se expressa através de várias ações que o nosso ministério já colocou em marcha em pouco mais de 8 meses de governo, tais como a recuperação da política de valorização real acima da inflação do salário mínimo e a recriação e revitalização dos conselhos tripartites que monitoram as políticas públicas do Ministério. Contamos com a convicção e liderança do presidente Lula, que, como todos sabem, tem como sua origem política e luta pela justiça e direito dos trabalhadores para continuar e seguir com o projeto de país e mundo melhor que buscamos, com relações de trabalho e produção mais justas para as pessoas e para o planeta. Alguns números são importantes para mostrar a robustez e comprovar definitivamente que o sistema previdenciário brasileiro é uma das ferramentas sociais mais importantes para levar aos 4 cantos do país segurança, desenvolvimento social e distribuição de renda. Mais de 2.000 cidades brasileiras, metade do território nacional, vivem quase que exclusivamente dos benefícios que seus moradores recebem mensalmente da Previdência Social. São eles que fazem girar a roda da economia local, dos pequenos comércios aos longínquos campos rurais. Entendemos que a sustentabilidade do sistema é relevante, mas nada é mais importante que vidas. Portanto, as pessoas devem estar no centro de todas as políticas públicas. Assim, ao nosso ver, me desculpe. Assim, ao nosso ver, a sustentabilidade do sistema deve ser buscada por meio de geração de mais e melhores empregos formais, aumentando-se assim a base de contribuintes do sistema. Nos primeiros 8 meses de 2023, já geramos mais de 1.300.000 novos empregos formais. A projeção é que 23 sejam gerados em torno de 2 milhões de empregos formais no Brasil. Para alcançar os objetivos aqui propostos, precisamos aprofundar a cooperação internacional, partilhando as melhores práticas em matéria de políticas públicas proativas e de emprego formal de qualidade, principalmente através do desenvolvimento de sistemas de proteção social e da negociação coletiva. O engajamento permite que nosso mercado de trabalho se beneficie da experiência um dos outros e lidere um processo global de combate à desigualdade, garantindo inclusão social para todos e todas. Muito obrigado, senhores.
Obrigado. Thank you very much. We will, Minister, we will now move to the next speaker, which is the People's Republic of China.
Tudo aí.
尊敬的主席、各位部长、各位代表、女士们、先生们，大家上午好。感谢国际劳工组织汤普森女士和国际社会保障协会海台诺先生所做的详细介绍，以及各国部长已经进行的和将要进行的经验分享。社会保障是保障和改善民生、维护社会公平正义、增进人民福祉的基本制度保障，是促进经济社会发展、实现人民共享改革发展成果的重要制度安排，发挥着民生保障、安全网、收入分配调节器、经济运行减震器的作用。当前，在世纪疫情和经济复苏压力交织的背景下，社会保障的重要性进一步凸显。中国政府高度重视在发展中保障和改善民生，始终坚持以人民为中心的发展思想，明确健全、覆盖全民、统筹城乡、公平统一、安全规范、可持续的多层次社会保障体系的目标要求。我们不断完善社会保障体系，稳步提高社会保障水平，建成了世界上规模最大、覆盖人数最多的社会保障体系。第一，我们增强社会保护可及性，将更多的人群纳入覆盖范围。我们实施全民参保计划，目前基本养老、基本医疗、失业、工伤、保险参保人数分别为10.6亿人、13.5亿人、2.4亿人和2.9亿人，基本实现了社会保险法定人员全覆盖。探索建立平台就业人员职业伤害保障制度，在部分平台企业和部分地区试点，推进平台接单人员参保登记、职业伤害确认、待遇支付和信息管理，逐步全面推广，解决这些人员最急需的社会保护问题。第二，我们增强社会保护的可靠性，积极推进多层次、多支柱养老保险体系。我们改革基本养老保险第一支柱，实施基本养老保险全国统筹，统一城乡居民养老保险制度，加快第二支柱企业年金、职业年金养老保险，推动建立个人养老金和其他个人商业养老金融业务等第三支柱建设，对第一支柱进行有效补充， 更好地满足人民群众多样化养老保障的需求。第三，我们增强社会保护可持续性，不断强化保障能力，稳步提高待遇水平。目前，基本养老、失业、工伤3项社会保险基金累计结余近8万亿元人民币，开展基本养老保险基金投资运营，委托投资合同规模约1.6万亿元，年金基金资产规模超过5.2万亿元，增加全国社会保障基金战略储备，基金权益约2.7万亿元，划转国有资本1.7万亿元，充实社保基金，建立退休人员基本养老金合理调整机制，失业保险金标准正常增长机制和工伤保险待遇调整机制，社会保障待遇持续提高。第三、第四，我们增强社会保护兜底性，发挥社会政策托底功能，健全就业援助制度，对困难人员提供1对1精准服务，运用公益性岗位安置等措施，确保零就业家庭至少有1人就业。对参加城乡居民养老保险的困难群体，由政府为其代缴部分或全部养老保险费。今年上半年，1555万人员享受了这一政策。降低失业保险政策门槛，扩大保障人员范围，兜牢失业人员基本生活。第五，我们增强社会保护便捷性，不断优化经办服务，制定实施社会保险经办条例，规范经办服务行为，提高服务管理水平，更好保障群众社保权益。我们建立了全国统一的社保公共服务平台，开通全国性服务，有力地保障了社保事务就近办、线上办、快速办，实施社会保障卡一卡通，持卡人数达到了13.7亿人。各位代表、女士们、先生们，当前中国人民正在中国共产党带领下全面建设社会主义现代化国家。中国式现代化是人口规模巨大，全体人民共同富裕，物质文明和精神文明相协调，人与自然和谐共生，走和平发展道路的现代化。这既有各国现代化的共同特征，更有基于自己国情的鲜明特色，为人类对更好社会制度的探索提供了中国方案，为人们提供更可靠、更充分的社会保护，是推进现代化进程的价值追求和现实任务。我们愿与金砖国家深化国际合作，加强政策协调，分享良好实践，推动实现联合国2030年可持续发展目标，特别是目标8和10中关于社会保障的内容，促进人人享有社会保护。谢谢大家。
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We will move to the Republic of India.
नमस्कार, धन्यवाद अध्यक्ष महोदय। देवियों और सज्जनों एवं सहयोगियों, विश्व की अग्रणी अर्थव्यवस्था के रूप में जो विश्व जनसंख्या के एक महत्वपूर्ण भाग का प्रतिनिधित्व करते हैं, यह सुनिश्चित कराना हमारी सामूहिक जिम्मेदारी है कि हमारे नागरिकों को बुनियादी सामाजिक सुरक्षा के साथ साथ आय सुरक्षा उपलब्ध हो सके। श्रम और रोजगार मंत्रियों की बैठक के भारत के G20 परिणामी दस्तावेज का उल्लेख करते हुए मैं यह बताना चाहता हूं कि G20 देश ने पर्याप्त और सतत सामाजिक सुरक्षा पर नीतिगत प्राथमिकताओं को अपनाया है। इसमें गिग और प्लेटफॉर्म कामगारों के लिए सामाजिक सुरक्षा, मर्यादित काम के लिए उपाय कराना और सामाजिक सुरक्षा के उचित स्थायी वित्त पोषण को सुनिश्चित कराना शामिल है। भारत सरकार ने सामाजिक सुरक्षा संहिता 2020 को लागू किया है। इसमें सामाजिक सुरक्षा को फॉर्मल और इनफॉर्मल क्षेत्र के कामगारों को स्वास्थ्य देखभाल तक पहुंच सुनिश्चित करने और आय सुरक्षा प्रदान करने के लिए प्रदान की गई सुरक्षा के उपायों के रूप में विशेष रूप से बुढ़ापा, बेरोजगारी, बीमारी, विकलांगता, कार्य के दौरान चोट लगने, प्रसूति या जीविका अर्जित करने वाले की मृत्यु के मामले में उन्हें प्रदान किए गए अधिकारों और तैयार की गई योजनाओं के माध्यम से परिभाषित किया गया है। यह संहिता सामाजिक सुरक्षा निधि की स्थापना के माध्यम से असंगठित कामगारों को गिग और प्लेटफॉर्म कामगारों के लिए सामाजिक सुरक्षा प्रदान करती है। भारत अपने नागरिकों को विभिन्न प्रकार के इन काइंड सामाजिक सुरक्षा लाभ प्रदान कर रहा है, जैसे निःशुल्क आवास, सार्वजनिक वितरण प्रणाली के माध्यम से खाद्य गारंटी, उजाला योजना के माध्यम से सब्सिडी वाली रसोई गैस, जन धन योजना के तहत नगद अंतरण और फसल बीमा योजना के माध्यम से कृषि फसल बीमा आदि। हम ILO और अन्य अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संगठन से आग्रह करते हैं कि वे सामाजिक सुरक्षा के लिए हमारे देशों द्वारा अपनाए गए इन काइंड सामाजिक सुरक्षा कार्यक्रम को ध्यान में रखें, जिन्हें वर्तमान में विश्व रिपोर्ट और डाटाबेस में शामिल नहीं किया जा रहा है। आज भारत डिजिटल भुगतान में दुनिया में अग्रणी है और टेक्नोलॉजी के उपयोग के माध्यम से नागरिकों के जीवन और शासन प्रणाली में सुधार कर रहा है। प्रत्यक्ष लाभ अंतरण प्रणाली पारदर्शी तरीके से विभिन्न कल्याणकारी योजनाओं के तहत सूचना और संचार टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग करके लक्षित लाभार्थियों को बेहतर और समय पर लाभ सुनिश्चित कराती है। हमारा मजबूत विश्वास है कि अंशदायी और गैर अंशदायी वित्त पोषण चैनलों के सही मिश्रण के साथ हमारे सामाजिक सुरक्षा और आय सुरक्षा कार्यक्रम के स्थायी वित्त पोषण हमारे लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करने की कुंजी है। इसीलिए मैं इस अवसर पर ब्रिक्स देश के लिए अपने सामाजिक कार्यक्रम के सतत वित्त पोषण के तरीकों का पता लगाने की आवश्यकता पर प्रकाश डालना चाहूंगा। मैं यह आशा व्यक्त करता हूं, अपनी बात समाप्त करना चाहूंगा कि इस क्षेत्र में हमारे देश के बीच निरंतर सहयोग और बातचीत हमें एक ऐसे समाज के निर्माण की ओर ले जाएगी जो मौलिक अधिकार, निष्पक्षता, न्याय और समानता सुनिश्चित करता है। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
Thank you. We will now give the floor to the Russian Federation.
Уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемые коллеги, прежде всего хотел бы поблагодарить вас, господин министр, за прекрасный вчерашний прием. Тема, которую мы рассматриваем сегодня, крайне актуальна для всех наших стран. И я хотел бы поблагодарить МОД и МАСО за их содержательные презентации и предложения. Российская Федерация – это социальное государство, политика которого направлена на создание условий, обеспечивающих достойную жизнь и свободное развитие человека. Этот постулат закреплен 7 статьей Конституции нашей страны. В части социальной защиты Россия ратифицировала ряд международных документов ООН и Конвенции Международной организации труда. Ключевая мысль этих документов – это обеспечение доступа граждан к основным социальным услугам. В России обеспечен всеобщий доступ к социальной защите. Правительством разработан и реализуется целый ряд социальных программ. Они помогают гражданам выйти из бедности, другие носят демографический характер и поддерживают семьи с детьми. Существуют программы, ориентированные на граждан с инвалидностью и на людей старшего возраста. Важную роль играет и повышение минимальных гарантий по оплате труда. В прошлом году минимальный размер оплаты труда повышался дважды. Таким образом, рост минимального размера оплаты труда за прошлый год превысил 16%, а с 1 января 2024 года будет повышен еще на 18,5%. Ежегодно осуществляется индексация социальных гарантий, пособий и льгот не ниже уровня инфляции. И с 1 января текущего года в России создан социальный фонд России. Он объединил в себя функции пенсионного фонда и фонда социального страхования. Фонд стал эффективным инструментом максимально удобного предоставления гражданам и организациям услуг и части реализации функций. Обеспечена прозрачность управления за счет участия в этом процессе законодателей, социальных партнеров, работодателей и профсоюзов. Сегодня фонд аккумулирует страховые взносы работодателей по 55 миллионам работников, обеспечивает поддержку почти 30 миллионов детей от общего их количества, это порядка 10 миллионов, выплачивает пенсии 43 миллионам пенсионеров, это 100% пенсионеров, достигших пенсионного возраста. Также с 1 января этого года запущена универсальная система исчисления и уплаты страховых взносов. Цель внедрения единого страхового тарифа – это снижение административной нагрузки на бизнес, повышение уровня страхового обеспечения граждан. Единый страховой тариф позволил в 3 раза сократить количество показателей в отчетности по страховым взносам, которые предоставляются в налоговые органы, а также уменьшить количество отчетностей, которые предоставляют организации в социальный фонд. Вместо 5 отчетов сейчас предоставляется только 1. Существенно вырос и уровень социальной защищенности наших граждан. Так, к 2025 году максимальные суммы пособий по временной нетрудоспособности, по беременностям и родам и ежемесячного пособия по уходу за ребенком до 1,5 лет увеличиваются на 75%. Еще на 75% они увеличатся в 2026 году. Вопросы социальной защиты включены в приоритетный перечень задач правительства. Поддержка семей в связи с рождением и воспитанием детей – это одно из важнейших направлений нашей работы. В России с 2007 года при рождении второго ребенка выплачивается так называемый материнский капитал. С 2020 года его можно уже получать при рождении первого ребенка. Серьезно расширена линейка возможностей использования капитала, и это в основном улучшение жилищных условий, финансирование образования детей, в том числе в негосударственных организациях. Благодаря инициативам нашего президента Владимира Владимировича Путина с 1 января 2023 года сформирована и создана целостная система поддержки семей. С этого года введено единое пособие на детей в возрасте от 0 до 17 лет и беременным женщинам. Мы объединили целый ряд пособий, менее значимых по сумме, объединили категории получателей, и на сегодняшний день в рамках этого пособия предоставляется по единым принципам и критериям, а самое главное, оно является в самом выражении равным минимальному прожиточному минимуму на ребенка в нашей стране. Эта мера поддержки назначается с применением комплексной оценки нуждаемости, то есть оценивается не только уровень доходов конкретной семьи, также учитывается наличие недвижимости, транспортных средств, доходов от вкладов в банках и другие аспекты. Это позволяет нам максимально адресно финансировать людей, которые нуждаются в поддержке со стороны государства. Мы достигли серьезных успехов в снижении бедности в нашей стране. Социальная помощь гражданам с инвалидностью и людям старшего возраста – еще одно важное направление нашей работы. В приоритетном порядке она оказывается тем, кто одинок и оказался в сложной жизненной ситуации, не может без помощи справиться с ежедневными делами. Граждане могут получать социальную помощь в государственных учреждениях. Предоставляют такие услуги и негосударственные поставщики, так называемые социально ориентированные предприниматели и общественные организации. Новая форма помощи – система долговременного ухода. В России получить такую помощь смогут те, кто не может обойтись без посторонней помощи. Это пожилые люди и граждане с инвалидностью старше 18 лет. В пакет долговременного ухода входит порядка 50 услуг. Это помощь в проведении гигиенических процедур, передвижения, питания и другие меры поддержки. Система долговременного ухода до этого реализовывалась в пилотном режиме, а с 1 сентября текущего года распространена уже на все субъекты Российской Федерации в нашей стране. Также мы продолжаем активно развивать систему так называемого социального казначейства. Сегодня 34 меры социальной поддержки предоставляются гражданину только по одному электронному заявлению, которое вносится через единый государственный портал государственной услуги со стороны гражданина, либо в принципе предоставляются гражданину проактивно, без необходимости предоставления бумажных документов. С 2022 года работает информационная система «Единый контактный центр взаимодействия с гражданами». За это время в контактный центр уже поступило обращение порядка 30 миллионов наших граждан. И по итогам 2022 года граждане информируются о положенных их мерах проактивно. Речь идет о жизненных ситуациях, о жизненных событиях, которые наступают у любого человека. Это беременность, это рождение ребенка, это достижение ребенком определенного возраста, это установление инвалидности, достижение пенсионного возраста. То есть весь пул мер государственной поддержки предоставляется гражданину при наступлении той или иной жизненной ситуации. С 2021 года по сентябрь 2023 гражданам уже было направлено более 4 миллионов таких уведомлений с полным разъяснением, на что они могут рассчитывать в рамках государственной политики. Конечно, нам много еще предстоит сделать, но я уверен, что обмен опытом поможет сделать нам систему социальной защиты наших стран более совершенной и удобной для наших граждан. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you to the minister from the Russian Federation. The last speaker in this group will be Minister Zulu, speaking on behalf of South Africa. Where are you?
Chairperson, this is Brenda Sbeko. I'm here. I wish to apologize for Minister. She's not feeling very well. She's asked me to rather read the speech for her.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let me take all these things off. Thank you. Honorable Chairperson, fellow members and Deputy Ministers, development partners, distinguished participants, I would like to begin by expressing our sincere gratitude to Mr. Caetano from the ISA and Ms. Thompson from the ILO for their insightful presentation on social protection. Their expertise and commitment to this critical issue are deeply appreciated. Social protection is of paramount importance to the Republic of South Africa. We firmly believe that social protection serves as a vital tool for poverty reduction and vulnerability mitigation, contributing to the overall health, nourishment, and literacy of our population. It is integral to our pursuit of sustainable and equitable growth, improved well-being, and enhanced productivity. Social protection interventions play a key role as economic stabilizers and assist in building resilience among vulnerable groups, as we recently witnessed during the COVID-19 crisis. Moreover, we recognize that effective social protection is an indispensable component of our commitment to achieving the UN SDGs of eradicating poverty, an endeavor that cannot succeed unless we directly address unemployment and underemployment. As a government, we are resolutely dedicated to fostering an economy that generates millions of jobs. Historically, such monumental tasks have been accomplished through collaborative efforts with stakeholders, including organized labor and business. The BRICS platform provides us with renewed hope as it facilitates the exchange of ideas and cooperative action aimed at ensuring social protection for all, alongside robust job creation and economic growth. We firmly believe that social protection is a cornerstone of social inclusion, particularly for marginalized groups, including women, children, and the elderly, persons with disabilities, and the vast number of unemployed and underemployed individuals. Expanding the reach of social protection is therefore a top priority for us. We also recognize that effective social protection must be underpinned by sound and stable macroeconomic policies. Extending this protection to all segments of society is a responsibility we have embraced since the dawn of democracy, as underpinned in our Constitution. Over the years, we have implemented successful strategies and complementary approaches that have led to progressive coverage of our people through various forms of social protection. These programs encompass a range of initiatives, such as the provision of free water and electricity, housing, education, and school feeding schemes for the most vulnerable children in our society. After all, socio-economic rights are constitutionalized and enforceable in the South African context. Nonetheless, these efforts have yielded tangible results, significantly reducing poverty rates from 53% in 2006 to 40% in 2015 for those aged between the age of 35 to 44, and from 57% in 2006 to 47% in 2015 for young people aged 25 to 34. These achievements are largely attributed to the social assistance program offered by our government, including the child support grant, old age grant, disability grant, and other needs-based grants, such as the foster child grant and care dependency grant. These interventions are financed from the fiscus and administered by our Social Security Agency, SASSA, and they reach around 27 million beneficiaries, which includes 19 million normal grant beneficiaries and 9 million temporary social relief of distress beneficiaries. Our efforts are internationally recognized. For example, with the recent ISA Good Practice Award, South Africa was recognized on the impact of the child support grant, and next week, together with the Nelson Mandela Foundation, we will be launching a report on child poverty in South Africa, which shows government's intervention at reducing poverty at an early age. For the working age population of 18 to 59 years of age, we initially placed great faith in their ability to sustain their livelihoods through employment. However, our economy's pace has not always aligned with employment needs, resulting in persistently high levels of unemployment. While initiatives such as the expanded public works program have made significant strides in addressing unemployment, it became abundantly clear during the COVID pandemic in 2020 that more comprehensive measures are required. The lockdown measures implemented by the government further exposed our shortcomings and prompted us to act through the Social Relief of Distress Grant. The substantial budget for this social assistance program, as highlighted in the BRICS Research Network report, underscores our commitment to addressing the challenges faced by the working age population. Our institutions are central in the implementation of various interventions. South Africa is committed to continue to work together with various partners within the BRICS formation and in the region. Institutional coordination and institutional development remains critical for us to achieve the results we would want to see. South Africa's success in providing social protection for workers is reflected in our well-established legislation and the institutions responsible for social security, such as the Unemployment Insurance Fund and the Compensation Fund. These entities play a pivotal role in protecting workers against job loss, sickness, income fluctuations through maternity and adoption, as well as occupational injuries and diseases. During the COVID-19 crisis, the Unemployment Insurance Fund made a significant impact by providing substantial relief through the Temporary Employment Relief Scheme. As we strive to extend coverage of social protection, we must also confront the economic forces pushing our people into informal employment, self-employment, and new forms of employment within the platform economy. These evolving employment paradigms, along with their atypical characteristics, challenge our efforts to expand social protection and threaten to erode the gains we have made through ensuring decent work. In this regard, we wholeheartedly support the ILO's Decent Work program, which not only holds the promise of creating employment, but also ensures that the employed have access to contributory social security through decent work. Furthermore, in collaboration with the ILO and our social partners, South Africa has developed a Decent Work Country program, which ensures participation of all stakeholders. This program will undoubtedly contribute significantly to our goal of extending social protection to all segments of our population, emphasizing the role of social dialogue and human-centered recovery in employment creation. While we recognize the transformative potential of technology in creating technology-driven jobs and boosting productivity and innovation, we also face challenges in aligning our workforce with the demands of emerging fields such as artificial intelligence and robotics. These challenges, particularly for our youth, highlight the need for relevant skills development that responds to the evolving nature of work. We have taken the findings of the BRICS research networks into careful consideration as they confirm the demographic challenges we face. South Africa's population is disproportionately young, with millions struggling to secure employment even after completing their academic performance. These research insights empower us to make informed policy interventions aimed at addressing the challenge of and cultivating a capable, economically contributing young population. Finally, we remain committed to promoting workplace safety and health. We encourage employers and workers to take urgent, immediate, and effective action to reduce workplace accidents and work-related ill health, fostering a safe and healthy working environment. Our national strategies to enhance occupational safety and health aim to maintain our excellent record in this vital component of contributory social security, particularly through the Compensation Fund. A healthy workforce enables the fund to redirect its resources towards other job creation initiatives, such as supporting sheltered employment factories that employ individuals with mental and minor physical disabilities. In conclusion, South Africa reaffirms its dedication to advancing social protection as a means to reducing poverty, promoting equitable growth, and achieving the sustainable development goals. We value the insights and collaborative spirit shared with the BRICS community and remain committed to working together to create a future where social protection is a reality for all. Lastly, Chairperson, we are indeed glad as South Africa to be hosting the ESA Regional Social Security Forum in 2026, and we will certainly extend the invitation to the BRICS and like-minded countries as we consolidate the importance of South-South cooperation. I thank you.
Thank you, my sister. At this stage, we're going to request the guest ministers to make their observations or contributions. We'll take them in their order, alphabetical order, starting with the Republic of Cuba.
Muchas gracias. Agradezco que me concedan el uso de la palabra y además por la valiosa información recibida hasta el momento. Cuba tiene un sistema de seguridad social con rango de ley, está refrendado como derecho constitucional tiene un pilar contributivo dirigido a los trabajadores con cobertura universal. Nuestro sistema es de reparto con una contribución tripartita de empleadores, trabajadores y también interviene el Estado para cubrir el desbalance entre los ingresos y gastos del presupuesto de la Seguridad Social, que representa una parte importante del Producto Interno Bruto y que se aprueba anualmente también con carácter de ley por la Asamblea Nacional del Poder Popular, que es el máximo órgano legislativo de nuestro país. Los riesgos cubiertos en cuanto a la vejez, la enfermedad de origen común y profesional, la invalidez parcial o total, el fallecimiento, en caso de fallecimiento del trabajador o del pensionado, la protección a su familia, y en ningún caso hay periodo de espera para el cobro de las prestaciones. Destacar la protección de la maternidad que tenemos en nuestro país. Hay un receso obligatorio de 34 semanas. A las 32 semanas, si el embarazo es múltiple, la licencia de maternidad es por 18 semanas, 6 semanas antes del parto, 12 semanas posterior al parto, con una prestación monetaria equivalente al 100% del salario de la trabajadora. Y la protección puede derivarse al padre, a los abuelos y a otros familiares si lamentablemente la madre falleciera o vencida la primera licencia postnatal destinada a la recuperación de la trabajadora, esta decidiera incorporarse al trabajo y que otro familiar acompañara al menor. Estamos hablando, por ejemplo, de mujeres que son científicas, de mujeres que son doctoras, y en ese caso es imprescindible para el resto de la población contar con su labor y en este caso, ante la existencia de otros familiares que pudieran acompañar a ese menor hasta que pueda institucionalizarse en una entidad para su cuidado, se deriva ese derecho a la trabajadora. También hay un grupo de prestaciones complementarias, no solamente posterior en el periodo del embarazo, sino también para todo lo que es la protección de la mujer desde el punto de vista de su función reproductiva y también para una flexibilización laboral para que ésta pueda asistir a las consultas médicas, para que pueda amamantar a su bebé, o sea, para que pueda incorporarse un poco más tarde al trabajo o salir en un horario anterior. Recientemente, el Ministerio de Trabajo y Seguridad Social recibió el premio por las mejores prácticas que otorga la Asociación Internacional de la Seguridad Social, lo cual para nosotros es un motivo de orgullo. También tenemos regímenes especiales de seguridad social en correspondencia con las características de determinadas labores. Por ejemplo, en el sector agropecuario recientemente aprobado una modificación de cada 9 meses de trabajo, considerar un año de servicio a partir del desgaste físico que produce el trabajo en el campo. Y también otros regímenes especiales, por ejemplo, el que se otorga a los combatientes, los militares. Sobre el uso de las tecnologías, nosotros tenemos una base de datos en el país con todos los pensionados, aun cuando las prestaciones se conceden desde los municipios, están descentralizadas. El principal desafío que tenemos es concluir la base de datos de los trabajadores de todo el país, porque eso permite que estén informatizados el registro de contribuciones o el registro de tiempo de servicio y los salarios y pueda realizarse la jubilación en línea acortando el periodo de espera que hoy está en el entorno de hasta 30 días. Nosotros queremos implementar la jubilación en línea. Complementa este régimen un pilar no contributivo dedicado a la asistencia social, básicamente de familias, núcleos familiares que se encuentran en situación de vulnerabilidad y que dependen del Estado para poder avanzar. Este régimen no contributivo ofrece prestaciones monetarias ante ingresos insuficientes, prestaciones en servicios, entre ellos los servicios de salud. Ustedes conocen que en Cuba hay una cobertura universal de los servicios de salud y además son gratuitos. Y recientemente hemos avanzado en la implementación de un servicio de teleasistencia para acompañar a los adultos mayores que están solos en sus hogares, recordándole un grupo de toma de medicamentos y otros recordatorios que se requieran. También se ofrecen prestaciones en especie con la entrega de recursos a las familias que carecen de todos estos medios para poder adquirirlos y cubrir sus necesidades básicas, En este contexto es indispensable el papel de los trabajadores sociales que se encuentran a nivel de comunidad y estamos tratando de abandonar el tradicional enfoque asistencialista que tiene la asistencia social y dirigir el trabajo más bien a la transformación. Por ejemplo, nosotros estamos hablando de entrega de prestaciones condicionadas a que las personas, los jóvenes continúen estudiando, pero después se incorporen al empleo para tener también mejores conocimientos y puedan acceder a mejores empleos. Tenemos la entrega de activos para que esa persona, a partir de su capacidad de resiliencia, genere empleo, genere ingresos y preste servicios, que es mucho mejor que darle una prestación monetaria de la asistencia social y que se quede en su casa. O sea, estamos apostando por la transformación. Hemos implementado en Cuba el Observatorio Social y Laboral, que es prácticamente de reciente creación, y estamos validando el índice de vulnerabilidad multidimensional a los efectos de que las acciones tengan un fundamento más científico. El reto fundamental que tenemos es la sostenibilidad financiera de nuestro sistema de seguridad social, máxima en una sociedad altamente envejecida. Dentro del programa Trabajo Decente tenemos uno destinado a esta sostenibilidad financiera y también estamos trabajando en un sistema nacional para el cuidado de la vida ante este propio envejecimiento poblacional y hemos tenido también recibido cooperación tanto de OIT como de CEPAL en este empeño. Y finalmente decir que nosotros tenemos la Oficina Nacional de Inspección del Trabajo que se dedica a revisar la implementación de todas estas políticas y que para el próximo año, en diciembre del 2024, se presentará una actualización de la Ley de Seguridad Social para la aprobación de la Asamblea Nacional del Poder Popular y también hemos acudido a un grupo de expertos nacionales e internacionales para que contribuyan a que nuestra ley sea superior a la que tenemos en estos momentos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Let's go to the Kingdom of Lesotho.
Chairperson, Mr. Ngesi, Mr. Marcelo Caetano Isas, and Mr. Thompson from ILO, distinguished guests. Lesotho family believes in protection of children from any form of child labor, be it head boys or domestic work. As such, the National Action Plan on Elimination of Worst Forms of Child Labor has recently been revised in accordance with the resolution of the SADC Employment and Labor Sector of Ministers and Social Partners. Similarly, Chairperson, we are currently finalizing Occupational Health and Safety Bill in order to have a standalone legislation as opposed to the current situation where both the legislation on rights at work and OSH are in one statute. This rendered right at work inferior to OSH. The last bill that we are working on seeks to introduce a comprehensive social security scheme that will include both the public service and private sector. Additionally, we continue to facilitate the portability of social security benefits of Basotho workers from South Africa from various funds, such as Compensation Fund, Unemployment Insurance Fund, as well as benefits accrued through collective bargaining, such as Mine Workers Provident Fund, and from compensation awarded through class action cases. Social Security Fund currently is applied to old age as pension fund and households with people with disability and provision of free education at primary schools and support to orphan children, including school feeding programs. Social Security Scheme Bill will be presented to Parliament soon once completed, and this will provide more social benefits to factory workers, all workers in private sectors. Lesotho recognizes the support from ILO and encourages workers and employers to work together towards provision of the social security protection to eradicate poverty in all its forms. I thank you for your attention.
Relevant that the Republic of Malawi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and allow me to observe all protocols. Honorable Chair, allow me again to convey our gratitude to the Republic of South Africa for inviting Malawi to this meeting and giving us an opportunity to contribute to the dialogue on social protection. The dialogue on social protection resonates well with Malawi's aspirations as encapsulated in our long-term development plan, the Malawi 2063, and also with the various interventions that we have been implementing for quite some time. The Malawi 2063 has enhancement of the quality and coverage of social protection as one of the priority goals towards poverty reduction and wealth creation. Currently, Malawi's labor market consists largely of the informal sector, which makes up 89% of the workforce and does not, the workforce that does not enjoy any form of social protection. This means that, for example, when informal economy workers and their families fall sick, they are not covered by any medical insurance, since current medical insurance schemes cover mainly those in formal employment. Furthermore, Malawi's current workers' compensation system does not cater for those in the informal sector. In addition, the frequent occurrences of climate change-related disasters, such as cyclones, has also aggravated the need for social protection in Malawi. For example, the recent tropical cyclone Freddy, which many of us here are aware of, greatly affected the agriculture sector, whereby over 2.5 million Malawians, that is almost 13% of the total population, translating into over 500,000 households, lost their crops and livestock, rendering them food insecure. Equally, nearly 900,000 Malawians through that cyclone Freddy lost their houses. Their houses were damaged or literally swept away. The frequency of these climate-related disasters leaves Malawian households perpetually struggling to recover their lost livelihoods. Therefore, Malawi's need for effective social protection cannot be overemphasized. To address these challenges, Malawi is implementing a number of initiatives aimed at enhancing social security cover. These initiatives include the workers' compensation services, and Malawi is currently working to set up a workers' compensation fund which should more effectively cover workers that are injured through the workplace or that suffer ill health for whatever reason in the workplace. Again, under the Pension Act of 2011, Malawi introduced a mandatory contributory pension scheme which applies to every employer and employee. This is designed to make sure that the formal sector is well covered when it comes to terminal benefits. But as you can see, with a formal sector of only 11%, this is not adequate. The Malawi government is also implementing a social cash transfer program which targets households that are ultra-poor and labor-constrained. The objectives of the program are to reduce poverty and hunger among the ultra-poor and labor-constrained households, to increase school enrollment of children in these beneficiary households, and to improve nutrition and general well-being of the beneficiaries. Government plans to extend coverage because currently the coverage of this program is not nationwide, but the intention is to extend so that everybody who falls into this category is covered. To sustain the impact of this initiative within ultra-poor families, youths from these families are also being enrolled in skills development programs and are being supported while they undergo these programs with startup tools and equipment. The Malawi government is also implementing a climate-smart enhanced public works program which transfers income to non-labor constrained poor by providing limited employment opportunities. This is a nationwide cash for work program that covers almost 500,000 ultra-poor households who have labor capacity. Skills training complements the cash transfers provided to the beneficiaries for their contribution of labor and is focused on integrated watershed management, including work on land resource conservation and afforestation programs, which Malawi desperately needs given the frequency of the climate-related disasters that we suffer every year. Government is also planning to extend health insurance cover to all its employees, which will be massive given that in Malawi, government is the biggest employer. In addition, government is also exploring possibility of a social protection scheme for the elderly who are currently not included in any scheme. Malawi is also in the process of setting up a disability fund to support persons with disabilities who, again, are not doing too well in terms of inclusion in poverty reduction schemes. Taking advantage of the UN Secretary General's Global Accelerator on Jobs and Social Protection for Just Transition, Malawi plans to mobilize support to develop comprehensive social protection system and extend national coverage beyond the current 21%. In conclusion, Chair, Malawi supports the direction taken by the BRICS family in coming up with measures necessary for extending social protection systems as a means of accelerating poverty reduction and promoting inclusive growth and social justice. I thank you for your attention.
Asante sana, baby. We will now move to the Republic of Namibia.
Comrade Chairperson, Asante Sana, Honorable Ministers, Mr. Gilbert Humbo, Mr. Caetano and Mrs. Thompson from the ILO, ladies and gentlemen, the provision of social protection to ensure the welfare of our people, mandated by the Namibian Constitution, has been a central feature of Namibia socio-economic policies and programs since independence in 1990. In the Namibian context, social protection includes social assistance, social insurance, social welfare services, and in some cases, labor market policies. Namibia Social Protection Policy, launched in 2022, aims to build a comprehensive social protection system that addresses risks and vulnerabilities throughout a person's life cycle, thus ensuring that no one is left behind. Beyond addressing the longer-term poverty and social vulnerability, the policy further seeks to ensure that social protection system is shock responsive and better prepared to respond to sudden or severe shocks that frequently affect several households at the same time. Non-contributory or tax-financed social protection is an important commitment of the government of the Republic of Namibia. A significant amount of resources is committed annually. In the last financial year, in excess of 9.2% of the total budget and 3.3% of the GDP was allocated towards non-contributory social protection. Non-contributory grants include a universal old age grant for all persons of the age 60 and over, covering now 98% of eligible beneficiaries. Vulnerable child grant, the foster grant, care grant, the maintenance grant and the special maintenance, veterans and disability grants. The number of social protection beneficiaries has significantly increased in line with increasing expenditure over the years. Total beneficiaries of non-contributory social protection increased by 68.7% from 353,339 in 2014 to a total of 596,247 beneficiaries in 2023. Sustained investment in social protection have in part contributed to a decrease in monetary poverty from 37.5% in 2003 to 2004 to 17.4% in 2016, and inequalities from a Gini coefficient of 0.63 in 2003 to 2014 to 0.56 in 2015 to 2016. In addition, a range of labor market activation scheme includes support of educators in early childhood development centers, implementation of vocational education and training, VET programs, food grants for families with food insecurity, school feeding at primary school level, youth unemployment programs and loans for tertiary education students through the Namibia Students Financial Assistance Fund. Since Namibia is prone to regular droughts, the government runs massive drought relief schemes in particular and for communal farmers. Chairperson, the Social Security Commission established by the Social Security Act of 1934 in 1994 administers contributory social funds based on mandatory contribution of employers and employees. The Maternity Sick Leave and Death Benefit Fund pays benefits for income support to women during the period maternity leave mandated by the Labor Act. As second, extended sick leave benefits related to benefits from persons with chronic illnesses who have exhausted primary sick leave benefits under the Labor Act. And 3, death benefits to families of deceased members. Development funds support, among other things, education and training schemes for unemployed persons, the Employees Compensation Fund administered by the Commission's pays benefit with regard to work-related accidents and illnesses. Chairperson, during the COVID period, Namibia introduced a massive stimulus and relief package amounting to 8.1 billion in total, which was funded in part by the Social Security Commission. The relief package included measures to support businesses and households by way of wage subsidies and government-backed loans to formal and informal businesses and employees in sectors which are directly affected by lockdown measures, and one-time income grant to persons who have lost their jobs due to the pandemic and its fallout. Finally, and perhaps most significantly, I am pleased to inform you that Namibia has also been chosen as a pathfinder country in the United Nations Global Accelerator of Jobs and Social Protection in the area of expansion of social protection. Namibia is committing itself to finalizing and operationalizing its plans for Social Security National Pension Fund, introducing an unemployment insurance fund, and exploring the introduction of non-contributory maternal grant for women who are not receiving Social Security maternity benefits. These benefits will be designed to reach persons in both formal and informal economies. Mr. Humbo, Namibia thanks the ILO for its ongoing support in the Global Accelerator. Asante sana.
Asante. Asante san. Thank you very much, Minister. Let's go to the Republic of Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Comrade Chairman. We welcome this opportunity to participate and share experiences with the BRICS countries, and we wish to tap for the development and modernization of our social security and social protection systems in our countries. My delegation followed the discussion with keen interest, given the fact that the issues resonate with what we are grappling with in our endeavor to not only strengthen existing social protection systems, but also broadening the scope and coverage in line with our thrust of leaving no one and no place behind. Our social protection system is influenced by two factors. One is the climate-induced vulnerabilities that are taking place not only in our country, but in the region as well as globally. And secondly, it is influenced by the sanctions that were intended to make the economy collapse and therefore effect regime change. Zimbabwe has a number of social protection programs that are funded by the state in the main and the private sector. One such is the basic education assistance module that we cover the children in schools, primary and secondary schools. At its inception, it was intended to cover 26% of the children in primary and secondary schools, and the numbers fluctuate depending on the resource envelope that we get each year. There's a national action plan for orphans and vulnerable children, so that again, we support those in the pre-labor market. We have a food deficit mitigation program because of the droughts that are climate-induced, but we also have now a program that is intended to strengthen the productivity of those in the agriculture sector. It is a climate-proofing agriculture strategy, which we call Pfumbuza or Intwasa, that we are assisting all the households in the rural areas, at least for them to have food security by us giving free seeds as well as fertilizer. And those in the cattle rearing areas, we provide with chemicals to ensure that their cattle can survive, especially tick grease. We are faced in January with what we call the January disease, where if we don't support them, many cattle die. We also have a harmonized social cash transfer program and public assistance. Within the realm of social security, we have schemes that cover invalidity and survivorship, as well as old age and employment injury. This we have now made sure it extends both to the private sector and the public sector. We remain committed in ensuring the extension of the social protection flow to ensure that every citizen has adequate social protection as we march towards a prosperous and empowered middle-income status by 2030. Chairperson, the COVID-19 pandemic brought to fore for us the imperative of a scheme to protect workers from loss of income during a pandemic of the magnitude we experienced during the COVID-19 period. We thus wish to learn from the BRICS family the experience of developing a contributory unemployment benefit scheme with a view to assisting us develop one that is suitable for our context. So we look to ILO and ISA to ensure that we can develop this scheme, and we know that our colleagues, our neighbors in South Africa have such schemes, and we want to learn from their experience. Zimbabwe, like the BRICS countries, has a higher percentage of workers in the informal sector. We therefore face the challenge of extending social protection to workers in this sector, given the complexities of bringing the sector into the mainstream economy. We believe, however, that the national formalization strategy that we are about to embark on will enable us to develop appropriate mechanisms for the inclusion of the informal sector in social protection, and we would like to exchange experiences in that sector also. Our information systems require modernization with a view to ensuring the availability of accurate and reliable data in real time for evidence-based programming of effective social protection systems. I wish to share that Zimbabwe recently developed an integrated management information system for social protection. The system has assisted us to avoid double dipping, track performance of the programs, identify areas of inclusion and exclusion in targeting of beneficiaries, as well as generally improving effectiveness and efficiency of the social protection programs. We therefore look forward to exchanging notes with the BRICS family on strengthening and modernizing the information management systems for social protection. And we remain seized with the issue of making sure that we integrate our programs with those of our neighbors, as well as globally integrating with the best practices. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Moyo. As we close this session, all inputs from the presenters and the Honorable Ministers have emphasized the importance of social protection, the social protection measures. And I think all what has been said in summary was that social protection encompasses a wide range of benefits, such as social insurance, welfare benefits, health care, and unemployment assistance, aiming to provide safety or a safety net for those facing hardship or crisis. For social protection also, it's not just addressing poverty, but it's also a fundamental human right that promotes dignity, resilience, and inclusion. No one should be left behind. By ensuring that people have access to these essential services and the financial support which is needed, social protection contributes to reducing inequality. Because every time we talk about poverty, we talk inequality and unemployment. So if we do that, we're enhancing economic stability and fostering social cohesion within our society. It plays a very vital role in promoting the well-being and empowering the individuals and families to lead more secure and fulfilling lives. And critical to the implementation, we need to digitize. We need a proper ICT in order to monitor things. That would improve the service delivered. And for this, it will help us for easy access. And the issue also raised here of extending the social protection to the informal economy, which is the biggest in our countries. It's very, very important. We've learned a lesson in South Africa from COVID, when the majority of our people in the informal economy were so vulnerable. And what is key, which has been said for all of us, because this takes different forms in the different countries. Information exchange, learning from one another, sharing those experiences. It's very key. That's how we close this session. Asante Asana. Thank you very much. I've received the information that the next session, which was to be chaired by my colleague, Minister of Social Development, Minister Lindwe Zulu, has requested to be recused. She's not well. I request you ministers, both BRICS ministers and guest ministers, that you allow me in facilitating this session to bulldoze you so that we chase time. We will give the input, at least it's very important, 10 to 12 minutes, Ms. Thompson. And then, as and when we respond, we must take the maximum of 5 minutes as BRICS ministers. Then we would request the guest ministers to take the maximum of 3 minutes. As much as this is a very important topic, which is about closing the skills gap in the informal economy through innovation and enhanced productivity. This session touches on very important aspects. Now, we're talking about jobs and economic growth, which touches on an important that it interconnects labor rights, social security, sustainable businesses and the welfare of our people. Therefore, this session focuses on jobs and economic growth, and it's subdivided into two areas where we would begin with, of course, the ILO on closing the skills gap in the informal economy through innovation and enhanced productivity. Then we will proceed to the proposals for the establishment of the BRICS-wide productivity ecosystem. Without further delay, I will request Ms. Thompson, again from the ILO, as the Assistant Director responsible for external and corporate relations, to give us an input.
Thank you, Chair, and I will do as much as possible to do it as brief as possible. So, honorable ministers, delegates, the DG in his opening remarks spoke of overlapping prices and their effects in terms of growing divergences and rising inequalities. One of the issues that you have been focused on is how to close the skill gaps in the informal economy and facilitate the ability of individuals and enterprises to move into the formal economy. When we consider that a higher proportion of workers in BRICS countries are in informal employment, then we must look at the relationship between skills and informal employment. Because the fact is that as well as we will see in the presentation, lower levels of education translate into fewer opportunities to access formal employment. As we can see in the graphic, and we are almost getting the graphics, based on the ILO estimates, the likelihood of being in informal employment decreases with the attainment of higher levels of education. In BRICS countries, 93.7% of individuals with no education work in informal employment. In contrast, for individuals with tertiary education, only 27.8% end up in informal employment. A similar picture emerges when we look at the distribution of informal and formal employment by the level of education achieved. Here we see that the informal economy tends to absorb workers with the lower educational levels. 1/3 of informal workers in BRICS have at best a primary level of education, compared to around 6% of workers in formal employment. When we look at the prevalence of informality by type of employment arrangement, it is clear that workers in non-standard forms of employment are more likely to be in informal employment. This is especially the case for workers in temporary working arrangements. The risk of being in informal employment increases dramatically with part-time and temporary working arrangements. And with the exception of permanent part-time work, this risk is higher in the BRICS countries when compared to the rest of the world. Clearly, the formalization of work is critical for reducing insecurity in employment, reducing poverty, and facilitating access to work. Doing so requires integrated strategies that address the multiple drivers of informality and combine actions to increase job opportunities in the formal economy, to promote transitions from the informal to the formal economy, and obviously to prevent further informalization. Of course, this requires consultation with actors representing those in the formal economy. Effective formalization strategies boost the economy's ability to absorb workers and enterprises operating in the informal economy with initiatives that facilitate these transitions, including providing access to skills and lifelong learning. investing in skills development delivers returns at the individual, enterprise, and broader economic development level. As we know, workers in the informal economy face several barriers in accessing and benefiting from quality skills training. This includes prohibited costs of training, lower levels of investment, and lack of availability of training for informal workers, as a result of which the proportion of workers in the informal economy participating in training is between 3 to 15 times lower than those in the formal economy.